Good evening. Thank you everybody for joining us out here tonight. My name is Hallie Frazee. I'm the Wildfire Communications Manager here at Pacific Power. We're so happy to be back in Hood River this evening. Before we start our program, we actually have a guest here, Commissioner Les Perkins with the Oregon Public Utility Commission, who'd like to share a few remarks with you before we get started.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Les Perkins. I'm a commissioner with the Oregon Public Utilities Commission, and I'm one of three for the state of Oregon. So I live just up the road in Parkdale, coincidentally. And for those of you who don't know, the Oregon Public Utilities Commission is a state agency. And to put it simply, our role is to hold the investor-owned utilities accountable. And we do this through various processes and proceedings, including regulating safety. So our mission as an agency is to ensure that all Oregonians have access to safe, reliable, and fairly priced utility service. On wildfire specifically, our role is to review the utilities' wildfire mitigation plans annually, to inspect and audit their infrastructure, as well as their vegetation management practices, and to review their expenditures before we allow those expenditures to be brought into rates. I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I think this is a really important topic, and I'm just here basically to listen, to observe. Our rules do require that the utilities engage with the communities that they serve around their wildfire plans. So I'm here to see how that's going and to listen to the questions and concerns you all have. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So tonight we've got a team of our wildfire experts here. They'll be speaking to you. First up, we have our senior meteorologist, Chester Lampkin. We'll wait. Thanks, Chester. We have our emergency management director, Nora Yatsov, and our wildfire mitigation director, Melissa Swenson. Also here, kind of out amongst you folk, are several of our other team members. Let's see, I've got Heather, our veg management, raise your hand, there you go. We've got Carrie, our regional business manager for this area. I've got Joey, like there, our area manager, and I've got Jeremy, another area manager. Amber, who is our emergency manager for this area. We've got Kevin, who's here, he's our operations director. I've got Tom, there you go, VP for operations, and we also have Pacific Power President Ryan Flynn. At any point, if you have any questions about your account, we also have our customer service team at the back. They're happy to help you with that. We'll be talking about some of our programs and other activities that we encourage you to do before wildfire season starts, and they are here to help. So we'll talk a little bit about our local service area in Hood River, and then we'll get into kind of our key areas of focus for wildfire mitigation. And then we'll kind of end it with a Q&A period. We'd love to hear from you guys, ask your questions. Hopefully we can get you answers, and really want this to be kind of a conversation with you. We're going to start off with just a brief video talking kind of high level of what we're doing at Pacific Power to invest in wildfire prevention and mitigation.
We are living in a world where there is more extreme weather, and wildfire risk continues to escalate. Here at PacifiCorp, we are making the investments necessary to protect the public and to protect the infrastructure and to protect the people of this company as well.
While the wildfire risk has been increasing here in the West, the investments that PacifiCorp has made has risen right along with it. To date, we've already spent over $500 million in wildfire mitigation, and the current forecast for deploying the system hardening that's involved in the wildfire mitigation plan reaches into the billions over the next 8-10 years. It becomes important to understand, well, where do we prioritize those investments? And so we want to make sure we're targeting that large investment where it's going to make the most impact, where it's going to reduce that fire risk the most.
We have an expansive weather station network here at PacifiCorp. By the end of 2023, in Pacific Power, we had nearly 300 weather stations. And in Rocky Mountain Power, we had nearly 200 weather stations. They're there because we're collecting important meteorological data that we're going to feed into our local weather forecast models. Temperature, wind, moisture levels, wind gusts. These hundreds of weather stations give us better data so that we can make better decisions on how to mitigate fire risk and how to protect the system from extreme weather events.
So by establishing an internal meteorology team, they're able to run these risk models with our own weather station network to help identify that risk no matter where and no matter when across our entire service territory throughout the year.
We have amazing, really cutting-edge technology. We have a computer model that covers more than 1 million square miles. It forecasts weather for every single point across that entire region. We have access to 2 types of modeling. We have the short-term modeling and the long-term modeling.
With both that long-term and short-term view, we're able to identify where the fire risk is, and by identifying that, we can then decide what mitigations to deploy.
We've taken 30 years of historical data, and we use that to identify areas of potential risk so that we can mitigate as much as we can ahead of potential wildfires in the future.
By looking back at that data, we understand that when the conditions are at their driest and when the wind is at its windiest, that top 5%, when those 2 things come together, that's where 98% of the catastrophic fires have occurred. When those conditions are present, we want to, for safety reasons, de-energize the lines and let those conditions pass. And so we deploy that when we know that the conditions are escalating, but they're nowhere near that top 5%. And so we give ourselves a little bit of a safety buffer, say a 15% dryness, 15% windiness, to make sure that we're making a good balanced decision between the risk and the outages that are created through the mitigation steps of de-energizing.
I'm optimistic because I know that we are doing the work necessary to keep the public safe and to protect the infrastructure of the utility.
As that risk has increased, our response has increased as well to match it and do everything possible to reduce that risk of fire in the areas we serve.
All right, so as I mentioned, the video is meant to kind of give you a nice overview or preview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. And throughout the video, and as we've been up here, we've been talking about all the different activities that Pacific Power does for wildfire prevention and mitigation. And so, to explain a little bit more about what that means, we've kind of grouped things into different activities that we do. Our first bucket is our situational awareness. And just like it sounds, it's being aware of what's going on across our service area every day of the year. It's doing our short-term forecasting and our long-term risk modeling. And Chester's going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. Our next bucket is operational practices. So this is how we operate the system safely and any extra precautions we may take during periods of extremely high fire risk. Melissa will be talking about this as well. We mentioned multiple times kind of our investment into the system strengthening and resilience, and this is all the work that goes into making our system better prepared to handle extreme weather, whether that's wildfires, winter weather, thunderstorms, strong winds. It's all going to make that system stronger. And kind of underlying that, and the reason we're here tonight, is engagement. We want to make sure that our customers and communities are aware of what we're doing and aware of what they can do to help us prevent wildfires across our service area. So right here we have our service area for Hood River. On the far side, we have kind of a map of Oregon. There's a couple places you'll see with some purple splotches, mainly in Southern Oregon, but the other big patch is right here in Hood River. These are our areas of fire high consequence. So these are areas that we've done risk modeling on. We know the risk is going to be higher here for a number of factors. So we may be doing additional work here, additional vegetation management, additional system strengthening. We may be looking at how we operate the system differently in this area because we know that the risk is higher. And so here in Hood River, our blue represents all of our service area, and most of Hood River, parts of Hood River are in that fire high consequence area. But as we know, wildfire doesn't stop at any sort of boundary like that. So we want to make sure everybody in the community is prepared. You can see we have about 140 miles of distribution lines. Those are the lines that go down to your homes. We also have about 23 miles of transmission lines. So those are the large ones you might see kind of off in the distance that bring the power and 4 substations in the area. And so this is just kind of a quick overview. We'll be talking a little bit more about what activities we're doing specifically here in Hood River, but I'm going to hand it off to Chester to talk to you guys about situational awareness.
Okay, thank you, Hallie. Good evening, everybody. Excited to be here in Hood River. I was just here a few weeks ago with the family. We came out during my son's spring break and just came to enjoy the town. We just love coming out here, so excited to be here again tonight. Again, my name is Chester Lampkin. I'm a senior meteorologist here at Pacific Power. I've been with the company just about 2 years, but this is actually my 3rd fire season. So I started at the tail end of one fire season. Excuse me. And I've been working, for Pacific Power for a couple years now, but, really it wasn't that long ago where I was just on the other side of this podium. I was just a customer, an electric utility customer just like you all. So I had no idea how much work goes into keeping the power on, keeping the linemen and the veg management and all the other operations folks safe, keeping the community safe. There's a lot that goes into it. So I'm impressed by what we do. We do some tough work, some hard work, especially the folks who work on the field. So, always a big kudos to them. And like I said, I was not working for an electric utility just a couple years ago. You go back to the spring of 23, I was working in television. Actually was a TV meteorologist. I did that for a number of years, most recently on the East Coast before we moved here to Oregon. So I brought the family out here, and we're loving living here in Oregon. But one thing we know about Oregon, whether you've been here like me for a couple years or you've been here for 20, 30, your entire life, is that wildfire is something that we've lived with. What we're seeing now, though, is that extreme weather and wildfire is becoming more common. It is a growing risk, and it is something that is impacting us here in Oregon, across the Pacific Northwest, across the West, across the entire United States. We are having fires all the time now. There's fires in December in Colorado. There are more fires in Florida, more fires in California. Fire is a growing problem. It's a big risk for our community. It's a community risk. At Pacific Power, my job as a meteorologist is to be aware of the situation, and the case of wildfire is aware of the conditions that could be conducive to wildfire starting and wildfire spreading quickly. That's our number one priority. We want to keep you all safe. We want to keep our operations safe. We want to keep everybody safe in the community. And we're one of the first utilities across the United States to invest in an in-house meteorology team. So I'll talk more about our team and how we put together the forecasts, et cetera, in just a moment. But you're not going to find teams like us in all the utilities, though you will see over the next few years that will continue to change as well. Extreme weather and, again, wildfire is a big problem for everybody. And it's not just a utility problem, as we all know. We're seeing wildfires impact other industries, insurance rates. It's impacting everything. Even many of us who aren't directly impacted by wildfire, we are seeing indirect impacts, air quality, et cetera. So our job as meteorologists, again, being aware of the situation, that situational awareness, what does that mean? That literally means what it sounds like, knowing what the conditions are right now, what the conditions have been over the past few weeks, months, what kind of winter did you have? Was it a wet winter or dry winter? What was the growth like last spring in that grassland? Or what sort of fire history do you have in some of these area forests, as we have lots of thick, dense forests across this area. We need to know the situation now. We need to know what's happening with the fuels being the vegetation. Is it moist, is it dry, et cetera? We need to know the weather conditions, the typical stuff, temperature, humidity, wind, but also other conditions, fire weather conditions. So that's what we do at Pacific Power. That's what we do is in the meteorology team. We're collecting and analyzing data all the time, in real time. And we're using that data to inform operations so they know how to operate the system safely. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide and talk about our forecast process. Again, there's 5 of us on the team, but we soon are planning to be a little bit larger. We hope to be at 7 in the coming months and year or so. And we forecast for 6 states. We are a very large company. We forecast for Oregon, Washington, California, and then our sister company, Rocky Mountain Power as well. 3 states there, Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. And we're working together. We're not just meteorologists in Salt Lake City and in Portland. We are actually one team. We get together multiple times a year. We talk to each other every single day, and we are watching the weather all across these 6 states where we have the distribution, the power lines that connect to your homes. And every day there's a meteorologist forecasting for different states. I am not the forecaster on duty today, but I will be on duty starting Monday, so I'll be watching what happens here in Hood River and all across Oregon starting on Monday. And we are focused on the weather 5 days out and on the transmission and distribution. So pretty much everywhere we have electricity current flowing, we are watching the weather. That is what we're doing. We're staying vigilant. Of course, there's winter storms, et cetera, heavy rains, flooding, et cetera. And that does take up a lot of our time in the winter. But even in the winter, fire season is in the back of our mind. We're always planning, prepping, getting ready, improving, trying to be better weather forecasters. So when we get to the spring, summer, and fall, we are ready for fire season. And we are laser focused on making sure that we know what is happening across our territory, wherever we serve customers. How do we do that? We watch the weather using our vast weather station network, almost 200 now in the state of Oregon alone. It says 12 plan, but something tells me that number is going to go up over the next year or so. So, there are plans to expand this network and continue to grow it so that we have better data. You may see with some of our weather stations, they're on our poles, so there's a picture of what they look like now. They do all the regular stuff, temperature, humidity, wind speed, all the things that we need to inform our forecast data, which I'm going to talk more about shortly. But we also use these as data points, and we do what we call a historical look back or reanalysis of the data. And we use that data to inform our forecast going forward. Every weather station across our territory, some of them, a lot of them are ours, but some of them are publicly available weather stations too, like from the Department of Transportation or the National Weather Service, FAA, Forest Service. Every single weather station within our territory that is near, or like wherever we serve electric customers, we have data tied to that line with that weather station so that we know the weather forecast at every single point across our territory. So if we're your power company, we know what the weather is doing or what it is going to do in your neighborhood. Okay, so this is a local area map here of some of the weather stations. You can find this data, by the way. It's all publicly available, including our weather station data and network on pacificpowerweather.com. This data is also fed to a variety of other sources, and it is ingested into our in-house computer model. I'm going to talk more about that shortly. And it is also ingested into computer modeling all across the country. So stuff run by the National Weather Service, by other research groups, utilities, et cetera, because we make it publicly available. So the network is there, pacificpowerweather.com. You can pick it out, and you can be your own amateur meteorologist and look at all the weather stuff that's going on in your neighborhood. It's pretty cool stuff. And we share this data whenever we can, so that's why we're talking about it here today. All right, so that weather network there, our particular part of the network, not all of these stations are ours, but a lot of these are Pacific Power weather stations. We can set that data to those weather stations to pull in data every 30 seconds when the weather gets critical. And generally that's something we do in fire season. So 10-minute data right now with all of those weather stations, but it could be up to 30 seconds during critical weather days, critical fire weather days. And when we're in that sort of critical fire weather mode, when we're worried about ignitions and fast spreading fire, we may be literally just staring at the computer, just watching the winds tick up or watching the temperature drop or rise. Again, right there on the website. And we share this data with our partners, other utilities. We've got a meeting coming up with PGE coming up in a few weeks that I'll be attending with a couple other meteorologists. Because we need to work on this problem together. This is a community problem. We work with BPA, we'll work with utilities in California, Washington, the East Coast, Hawaii, wherever. We have staff members right now in Arizona learning more about wildfire and what other utilities are doing. We're exchanging knowledge, we're trying to improve because we are all facing this problem, all of us. We work with the National Weather Service. We work with NOAA and the National Interagency Fire Centers. We work with as many partners as possible because, again, this is a community problem. Just want to show you a real quick picture of our in-house computer model. That's our domain. So we run a WRF. It's called the Weather Research Forecast Model. We run that internally on our own high-performing computing cluster. And we run this twice a day. It's also available on that website, that pacificpowerweather.com. And it has all the outputs you would get from your typical TV weather report or whatever you see online, wind, temperature, humidity, snow, ice. We use it in the winter for those things. We're always looking at wind. Wind is always a big problem for us in the utility world. But in the summertime, we're especially keyed into some of the fire weather variables that our weather model produces. Some of the variables are listed there. What's important about it is that these are specifically used to tell us when the fire danger starts to rise. When we see that rise in fire danger, that's when we start telling operations, okay, this is the risk now. This is the risk now. This is what we're worried about over the next few days. We're seeing a growing risk, or maybe we're drawing back, like at the end of the fire season. Maybe a rainstorm comes in and brings the risk back down, which we love summer rain in meteorology. So with that said, we've also used this WRF, this computer model, that 1 million square mile domain there. We've run it backwards. We ran it back 30 years. I mentioned that in the video. We use that as our baseline. It's our baseline so that we know what were the critical fire days going back to the 1990s. What were the worst fire days? Now we know what those days are. We use that to look forward in that 5-day forecast period. We can use that data as a baseline. And it's agnostic to changes in the climate. It's agnostic to, weather stations moving, et cetera, because it's what we call a reanalysis. So basically we've gone through as if it were just as valid today as it was 30 years ago. It's pretty impressive stuff. So that 30-year climatology helps inform us going forward. It also informs our risk modeling, that wildfire risk modeling that we talked about. So that was also in the video. This is a program that we call, that is called Wildfire Analyst. And it's a vendor of ours that uses our WRF data, our own computer model. They have their own fire model that you can simulate fires. And we lay that data over our computer model. So it uses our computer model as the weather inputs. They have their fire modeling data. This company, TechnoSilver, that runs this modeling, they've been around since, I want to say the 1980s, but it was definitely 80s, 90s. They've been doing this for years. They're expert level company here. They're used by several utilities, several other fire entities across the western United States. I'm going to show you a simulation, okay? Now I just want to point out, this is a simulation, not a real fire, did not happen. This is the 7th day of July of 2024. So I've run back the computer model, and I've taken our weather inputs and input it into the fire simulation. This is a sim, and it shows you how the fire would possibly behave should a fire start on the western part of the town, just west of there, looks like Phelps Creek there. Again, it's a sim. It's a sim. Windy day, hot, dry. We all know we burned a record amount of acres last year in Oregon. That was the most acres burned ever in the state of Oregon. it was an active fire season. So this is showing you how fire would behave should fire start in that particular spot there, right above the freeway. Now, I want to point out, again, a sim didn't really happen. We do this every single day, multiple spots across the territory, and we use that to assign a risk score in our software that tells you how bad the fire risk is or how low the fire risk is. Maybe it's not a risky day. And we use that to help inform our weather forecast as well. You can see the winds were whipping that day. It's no surprise, right? We live in the gorge. The winds can be really strong out of the west here. And when you've got hot, dry conditions, that's what we look for in meteorology. Hot, dry, windy conditions. Those are the days that we are most concerned about ignitions and fast-spreading fires. So it'll probably run through maybe one or two more times. My part is almost up. I just want to talk, a little bit about PacificPowerWeather.com. Now, this particular data set is not available. This is internal. We run this internally so that we can, again, operate the system safely. We also have our new Wildfire Intelligence Center, which we'll hear more about coming up from Melissa and Nora. They'll be using that software to help operations decide how we're going to operate the system in case of wildfire. But I just want to point out, we've got PacificPowerWeather.com. You can see, again, a lot of our data is available there. Check it out. I had some firefighters out in Sherman County. We were out there yesterday. They were like, oh, we already bookmarked it. We love it. And they even told me, hey, we've got a new weather station, so I'm going to try to get it up on the website. So please, give it a try. If you want to learn how to use it, if you have any questions about it, come see me afterward. I'd gladly talk about it, but we put our data out there. It's available publicly, our wind data, temperature data from all our weather stations. Also, you can go on the map section. You can check out our in-house computer modeling. You can see radar. You compare our model to other computer models, the American model, European model, all sorts of fun weather stuff. And we use this every single day for forecasting. We often have this page just up in the weather center at our control center, just monitoring even on days where there isn't much weather, there's always something interesting to look at. And it's always something, we're always learning something new. Those graphs there, you can click on a weather station near your neighborhood, click on the weather station and it'll show you graphs of what the wind may be doing, humidity, et cetera. It's very useful for just weather data, but also for fire weather forecasting. So I've basically covered, our situational awareness, that short-term fire and weather risk modeling that we do to help lower the risk of wildfires across our network and in our communities. We're going to talk more with Melissa. She's going to come up and explain some of the long-term things we're doing, that long-term picture that's helping to make the system stronger and more resilient to wildfire. So everybody, here's Melissa.
Thanks, Chester. Good evening, everyone. As Chester said, my name is Melissa Swenson. I'm the Director of Wildfire Mitigation for Pacific Power. I'm happy to be here. It's been a while since I've been in Hood River. I used to come up here fairly frequently. Our high school played Hood River High School in a lot of sporting events, so a lot of road time back and forth back in the day. And we also spent a lot of time at your absolutely gorgeous library today. It's beautiful. I so enjoyed it. I'm a bit of a library nerd, so it was great. So thanks for the hospitality of your library. It was really wonderful today. So I am here to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing to make our system more resilient against the hazards that may cause wildfire or ignition from our ignition, and also how we operate our system to be more safe during times of fire risk, like what Chester was talking about. And so what we're really trying to do is make sure that the system is more resilient to hazards. And this can mean some of the things you see up here, like putting on covered conductor on our lines to make them more resilient, or using things like aerial spacers or fire-resistant poles, or in some cases, undergrounding the power lines, and also installing things like smart devices. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what covered conductor looks like, and there's an example over there on that board called the right equipment right up at the top, so you can take a look at that. But if you think about when you're driving along the road and you may see poles and wires, most of the time that's bare wire. And so if something hits that on a good, strong, windy day, like a branch hits it or a leaf hits it or a balloon, lots of balloon events, it can cause a spark, which then can cause an ignition. So what we do if we're putting on a cover conductor is that's a layer of insulation. So if you think of things like appliances at your house, you don't just have a bare wire to your, from the appliance to your outlet. You have a layer on there to insulate it to make sure that if something hits it, it doesn't cause a spark. It reduces the risk of a spark. Very similar example, sort of theory around cover conductor, just much more powerful equipment and lines. We may also do some things like undergrounding in select circumstances where it makes sense, and that's putting the wires underground. We'll also do some things like also replacing wooden poles, which most of you have seen, and that's a lot of what our poles are right now that are holding up our poles and wires. We may replace those with more resilient equipment like steel or fiberglass poles that are a little more resilient to fire. And then we also may put things like aerial spacers on. So up here, you guys are in the gorge, and really check out the website with Pacific Power Weather, because even if, on a good day, you've got winds up here, you may be looking at windsurfing or kiteboarding, even if we're looking at the fire risk. But if a good strong wind is happening, you may start to see the lines start to sway back and forth. And if they sway hard enough, they may start to hit each other. And if they hit each other, that may cause a spark. So what aerial spacers will do is hold those lines apart and hold them sturdy and apart. So if the winds blow, they're going to move together instead of clashing with each other. So just to give you an idea of the work that we're doing around system strengthening, as of the end of 2024, we've completed 175 miles of overhead cover conductor, what you see over there on the board. And this year, our objective is to complete approximately 175 miles by the end of the year. And as of the end of March, we've completed about 67 miles. We're also doing some work on replacing relays and reclosers with more advanced system protection. And that's upgrading those relays and reclosers or replacing them. And again, there's an example of some of those over here on the line. On the display here. And you can think of relays and reclosers and also equipment we call communicating fault current indicators as working in tandem. So those relays and reclosers are what we put on the lines to feel if there's a tap on the line, if there's a branch that taps on the line. And there's going, oh, there's something on the line. Do I need to disconnect? And they'll disconnect the power. So those communicating fault indicators will also then send the message back to our control center going, hey, there's an outage on this line. We disconnected it. Here's the general area to where go look and see what's going on. So we use that to help narrow down where our crews need to go look to see what's going on and find out what we need to do to restore power to all of you if there's an outage. So I want to give you a look at where we're doing some of these system strengthening locations. So in the middle, you can see the map of Oregon. And up here on the right is the project I want to highlight for you all. This is one that we're doing on a circuit between Hood River to east of Mosier, so very much in your neighborhood, that we're working on this year to put in cover conductor. So you can see that while we talk about poles and wires and we think about poles and wires running straight down the road, a circuit can weave in and out. So it's not just the straight line between Hood River and Mosier, it's also going up and down roads. And so this is a really complex thing to put together. So we may be planning a year or more in advance on how to do this work. But we're also doing things in the meantime and all during the year on our lines around things like vegetation management. And vegetation management can look like things like from the air, checking out what's going on our lines and vegetation around our lines, as well as on the ground. And in areas of heightened fire risk, those areas in purple, and you can go look and see a display afterwards, a little bit closer detail where those are around your area. We're going out more frequently to do that vegetation management and really looking at making sure the vegetation is trimmed back from our equipment and that we're clearing poles in the areas around our poles of vegetation. So again, if there's a spark, we don't want it dropping down onto vegetation. And we want to make sure we're keeping trees clear, so if they blow, they don't blow into our lines. We're also making sure that we are taking care of any dead or diseased trees around our lines, and Heather's our forester for this area, and she's working really hard to make sure that she's checking out and making sure there's no dead or diseased trees around our lines. And we're doing that across all our lines, but we do this work more frequently in those areas of fire high consequence. We're also doing work on checking out and making sure that our equipment is safe. So we are on the lookout for potential problems with our lines and our poles and our substations. And in those areas of fire high consequence, we're doing more frequent inspections and making sure that we're fixing issues that may cause a fire or an ignition risk first and prioritizing those. And just to give you an idea of the magnitude of that effort, so last year in our fire high consequence areas and across our service areas, we inspected over 100,000 transmission and distribution pieces of equipment. That's a lot. This year, we're working on doing safety patrols across our entire service area, regardless of if you're in a fire high consequence area or not, to make sure that our equipment looks like it's in good shape for the start of fire season. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how we operate our system safely in those times of fire risk, those times that Chester and his team are looking at and going, oh, we've got a little bit of risk here. So really our approach is, as fire risk escalates, so does our response. So as Chester said, and I'll say again, 2024 was a record-breaking year for wildfires in the U.S. So according to the National Interagency Fire Center, there were more than 61,000 fires that burned 8.8 million acres. 2 million of those acres were in Oregon. So we had almost a quarter of them. We don't want to be number one in that every year. We don't want to ever be number one in that number. So we want to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that we're not contributing to that. So we want to make sure we're operating our system as safely as we can during those times of fire risk. And so what that looks like is, placing settings on circuits to be more sensitive. So if there's a fault, one of those taps in the line from a branch or a balloon or something, the power shuts off more quickly. And those are known as enhanced safety settings. We may de-energize circuits if the fire is coming too close to our equipment, or firefighters or emergency responders call us and say, please turn off the power for the safety of the people who are out fighting the fire. And those are known as emergency de-energizations. And as a last resort, we could do a public safety power shutoff when the weather and the fuels conditions are forecast to create an extreme fire risk. And Nora will cover public safety power shutoffs in more detail. So let's watch a video to explain a little bit better how we use these types of de-energizations to prevent wildfires.
At Pacific Power, we're committed to providing the safe, reliable service you count on every day. During conditions such as gusting winds and hot, dry weather, and in areas near trees and other types of vegetation that could ignite, we need to take certain steps to prevent wildfires and reduce their impacts. While these safety measures may interrupt your service, they can prevent catastrophic wildfire events. Let's look at 3 of the ways we help protect communities and prevent wildfires. The first is enhanced safety settings. During times when wildfire risk is elevated, we will adjust the sensitivity of some of our equipment. With these settings activated, our lines will de-energize within fractions of a second if a line is contacted by debris, wildlife, or strong winds, reducing the risk of a fire ignition. Because of this, there's an increased potential for power to be disrupted and remain off until field crews can visually inspect the lines before power can be safely restored. Next is the public safety power shutoff. Hotter, drier, and windier weather conditions can create heightened wildfire risk, and we may carry out a public safety power shutoff, or PSPS is done in partnership with local public safety partners. If a PSPS is likely to occur, we attempt to notify customers that power may be turned off and to keep affected communities informed throughout a de-energization. Once we've determined that the fire risk has passed, we will safely re-energize lines and restore service. Emergency de-energization is another wildfire prevention method that may result in a disruption of your power. When an active wildfire moves close enough to threaten burning into our lines or equipment, we will begin monitoring the fire closely to evaluate its potential spread and impact to our systems. If the fire is moving too close to our equipment, we will complete an emergency de-energization of our power lines. This process helps us prevent additional wildfires and protect first responders. Here at Pacific Power, we're dedicated to keeping our customers safe while delivering the power that our communities count on every day. During times of extreme weather events, when wildfire risk is at its highest, our wildfire prevention measures will help protect our customers and the communities we serve. To learn more, visit us at pacificpower.net/wildfire.
So we know that some of these operational practices, enhanced safety settings, emergency de-energizations, public safety power shutoffs, have an impact on customers. And we will always prioritize safety first, but we know that that can have an impact on customers. So on this map here, you can see the emergency de-energizations in blue and the enhanced safety settings outages in red from last year. And then so we can see the state over here, and then we can see the zoom in over here for 25 miles around Hood River. And you can see in red, we had some enhanced safety setting shutoffs that happened last year, and that's when the settings are a little more sensitive to those taps on the line. And then I think you can see a couple of emergency de-energizations there too. And so we know those are disruptive, so we want to let you know how you can be informed about what is going on when these sorts of events happen. So if we have enhanced safety settings set on your line, we will notify you by email or letter, depending on your communication preference with us, that those settings have been set for you for the season. And if there is an outage that happens on a circuit with enhanced safety setting, we're going to notify you based on your preference for receiving outage notifications from us, whether that be text, email, or phone. And I'd encourage you to go visit our customer service group tonight after the formal session to make sure that your notification preferences are updated with us, both your number, your email, and then how you want to be communicated with. For emergency de-energizations, when fire is coming near our equipment, if we have time, we're going to send you a notification of a pending de-energization, again, based off your communication preferences, text, phone, or email. Sometimes we may not have time, but if we do, we will certainly communicate with you. But as soon as we de-energize, we're also going to notify you that we've de-energized, again, using those communication channels, that the de-energization has happened. We also had a lot of feedback from customers last year that, hey, if we're de-energizing or having an outage because of enhanced safety settings or emergency de-energizations, we want to know what's going on. So we're also updating our outage map to give you that information if an outage is due to enhanced safety settings or emergency de-energization so that you can know more about what's going on. And then to talk about our last type of de-energization, public safety power shutoff, and also what you can do to prepare for wildfire season, I'm going to turn it over to Nora.
All right, thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for coming here. I really, really appreciate your interest in what we're doing. I appreciate your interest in what you can do for your community and how we can all work together. So first, I want to talk about our public safety power shutoff, which is something that I'm sure many of you have heard of. While we haven't conducted one here in Hood River, I just want to briefly go over what you can expect if we have to conduct one. Just to back up on what Chester talked about, we consider a public safety power shutoff when it's no longer safe to operate our system. So this is when the conditions are so hot, so dry, the vegetation is dry and quite combustible, and then it's very windy. You need these three potential considerations for us to conduct a public safety power shutoff. This timeline may be challenging for you to read, but I'll just briefly go over what to expect. So for us, it's basically a planned shutoff. So it's a planned event. We know about 5 days in advance for meteorology. As Chester mentioned, we have about 5-day outlook where potentially we can have this. As we get closer, 3 days in, we start working with our local public safety partners, and we really start looking at, are there any facilities that maybe need backup power generation? Is there a hospital or a care facility or a school that doesn't have backup generation and they need that power to continue on during the time that we de-energize? Do we need to stand up a community resource center? This is a place where you can go to get resources, you can get power to charge your devices, get on Wi-Fi, get some snacks, some water, get out of the heat. These are open traditionally extended hours from the morning into the evening, but they are not overnight facilities. So we can make those considerations 3 days in advance, and then 2 days in advance, we start letting you know. We start saying, hey, in 2 days, we are expecting to potentially turn the power off because it's so hot, it's so dry that it's no longer safe to operate our system. So we do this and we set a cadence of communication throughout the event, keeping you informed. When it is safe to turn the power back on, we have to go and patrol the lines, make sure that there's no damage, and if there's damage, we have to fix it before we start turning the power back on, so we'll communicate that with you. So for public safety power shutoff, it's really important that we have your proper contact information. If you set up your account 30 years ago and you may have changed your phone number but not updated it, we may not have it. And in the back, we have customer service representatives here for you that can help look up your account information and make sure that we have your, not just your proper email, phone, or text, but also what will you prefer for us to communicate with you. Next, I want to talk quickly about how we built our capabilities over the last year. This is since last wildfire season in preparation for this wildfire season. So we have a team of emergency managers. Your local emergency management contact here is Amber. She's in the back of the room, and she is with us here tonight. We traditionally do a lot of training, outreach, coordination, and communication with our public safety partners here. So locally in Hood River, it could be the fire district, it could be the emergency manager, the 911 manager, and so forth. So Amber stays in touch with them throughout the year. But then during an event, we coordinate the response, and we make sure that everything is moving, the resources are coming in, and we can make sure that we're managing the situation well. In addition to our emergency management team, I'm really excited. We have 2 new capabilities this year that I want to just briefly highlight. With the 3 different operational settings that you heard about, the the safety settings, the wildfire de-energizations, and the public safety power shutoffs, we have developed a 24/7 wildfire intelligence center. We are still hiring and building up for it, but we're anticipating to have that stood up fairly soon. These are specialists that are monitoring our system, all of our weather stations, all of our cameras to make sure that there's no fire starts. We have quite a few camera systems throughout the network that they can monitor, various websites that have information, so they'll be on 24/7 to monitor conditions and help us make real-time, real quick, well-informed decisions. Additionally, we have fire and emergency response managers. We have a great team. These are deployable. These are former firefighters with a lot of experience that can go out to a large wildfire and work with the fire department, the incident management team, and coordinate the priorities of the fire agencies. So they want to de-energize an area or they want to re-energize a specific area, they can clear the way, and these fire response managers will assist that coordination. So that We did this last year, and we found that it helped us recover quickly, it helped the fire agencies recover quickly, and it was very successful. So we're developing that capability as well. So we're really growing in ways that we can try to, in the event that we do have to de-energize, make sure that we recover quickly for you and make sure that we restore it as quick as possible. So now I want to talk a little bit about what you can do as well. And a quick quiz here. How many of you have an emergency plan at home? How many of you have planned? Great. That's awesome. All right. Maybe some of you came last year. So quickly, it doesn't have to be a very extensive plan. It doesn't have to cost anything. There's a lot of templates online. Oregon Emergency Management has one. Ready.gov has one. We have in our pacificpower.net/prepare, we have information on how to create a plan. But it's really just putting together what you, your loved ones, your family need to know. Financial information, medical information, prescription information. What if you can't get home? What's your emergency location to meet up? If you have kids at school or if you have a vulnerable neighbor, how do you help them out? And how do you contact their support services as well? So putting all that in one place just really is a great peace of mind. Next, how many of you have an emergency kit that you have, whether it's like a go one where you can't get home or whether it's you're stuck at home with no resources? You know, this takes a lot more effort to put together. There's a lot of ways you can do it. That's piecemeal, like one thing a month or one topic a month or once a week. You know, you go buy additional non-perishable food items and start storing them. Consider those that are most vulnerable that need your help during a time of emergency, right? That may not be able to care for themselves. Kids, pets, any vulnerable loved ones, what do they need to make sure they're comfortable? During a disaster, kids are really scared, and having a comfort item that they love, maybe an activity or a stuffed animal or blanket, it could be really, or their favorite food, really helps bring normalcy back in their lives. So making those considerations and really working on that, you don't have to have it all together today or next week, but piece by piece, it helps build that resiliency, it helps build that level of comfort and that ability that when something bad does happen, whether it's a power outage or something bigger, you can survive and you can thrive much quicker. And then finally, those of you with some land that can have a lovely space, how many of you know of the concept of defensible space or practice it? Wow, that's even better, fantastic. We know that if you do take the appropriate approach in creating defensible space in your home, your home may be able to survive a wildfire. That's been proven in multiple wildfires that we've recently experienced, especially the really strong conflagration fires that you've seen, even the urban one in the Paradise Fire in California. Some homes did survive because they actually took the proper steps to protect their home. There's some information here. You can also find it on the internet. Oregon Emergency Management, again, Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office has great resources for you to consider that. And then one other thing that I want to talk about, and I really want to mention those vulnerable family members or friends or neighbors that you have in your life. We do have a one-stop shop website that you can go to, and I would really love for you to share this information today with those when you come back. If you know somebody that has a medical condition that requires electricity for a device to keep them healthy, we do have a medical certificate program. They can sign up through their doctor. Once they get on the medical certificate program, we can offer a variety of services for them, whether it's additional notification for a PSPS event, whether it's language services if they have low English proficiency or don't speak any English, bill payment and financial assistance. And also we can offer backup power rebates. So we can offer up to $4,000 rebate for the purchase of a generator. And that will really help somebody that you care for remain resilient, right, and safe during an outage. And then finally, I want to leave you with you know, there's a couple ways that we can work together. Probably not something you, again, consider very often is to let your power company know where your proper contact information is, but you're welcome to do this by phone, online. You can talk to Adrian and the team back there today. Make sure you update how you want us to communicate with you, and then please sign up for alerts. That way, when we do have an outage or we anticipate something, we can also alert you and notify you as well. So thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for caring, and really appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, Nora. If you're interested in seeing the full wildfire mitigation plan for Oregon or any of our states that we operate in, you can visit pacificcorp.com/safety. We'll also throw that QR code back up on the screen for you. Feel free to take a look. I know this is a lot of information all at once, and we do appreciate you being here to learn, but we'd like to take some time to answer your questions now.